And herein lie descriptions of treasure, the predominant motivation for most adventurers. Subdivides treasure into individual, hoards, gems, jewelry, and plunder. And it starts off with individual treasure. Characters that have some sort of possessions on them when subdued, beguiled, or taken prisoner. Roll D100 first, consult the following table. Creatures, of course, from the Grimorium Monstrum often have modifiers to this roll, and then you progress across the determined row and roll D100 again for each column if treasure exists. Even if it's magical, then you consult Chapter 13, Magic Items, and God help you if it is. So if you roll less than 41 on your first roll, then for each of these, you roll again, and say for bronze, you roll a threshold roll, and if it's 100 or less, which means it always is, you'll get D12 bronze something, which are basically pennies or maybe farthings, I don't know. And such. I guess copper is rare for some reason, but silver's not. Electrum is not at all rare. And such, and it goes to gold and gems and jewelry and plunder and hoards. Hoards are collections, accumulations, and masses of wealth. Hidden, put aside for safekeeping. While characters may certainly have hoards, most often hoards are the treasures from lairs, and maybe the collective properties of numerous creatures or the sole property of a powerful individual. So you roll the 1,000, of course, and decide and determine if it is a small manor, like a knight or a lord, or if it is a medium lair or a kingly, I don't know, kingdom, I guess, or a colossal dragon horde of exactly 1,000. So that's the only way to get a dragon horde. You have to roll triple aught. Kind of specific, but that's how it is. And then you roll on the appropriate horde table below. Then you note our percentile chance of acquiring treasure in each of 8 categories again. And then you have a much larger. See, you got a 77 on bronze here, but instead of D12, you get D1000. And plunder and all this again. And medium horde and large horde. 3D1000, or 5D1000. Colossal horde. I didn't even see that. Medium, large. Oh, yeah, dragon, okay. So dragons carry 10D1000. Well, in their horde, I guess. They have it tucked away. Gems are precious stones, intrinsic and not derived from the setting. Cut and polished, random determination of gems. Rough gems are only worth a fraction, possibly 1% of their potential value. Roll D1000 again because it's such a fun number. And it can be obsidians, agates, turquoise bloodstones, and amethyst, lapis lazuli, and carats can be up to 6D1000, so up to 6,000 carats. And then this is 3 copper pieces per carat, and diamonds 125 gold pieces per carat, up to 100 carats. The weight of a gem is expressed in carats, an extremely small measure of weight. 1 carat equals 3 grains, and this is correct. That's a grain, and there's some there's some disagreement as to whether it was a barley or a wheat grain throughout history, and there were 2 different measurements. But 141 carats equals an ounce, and that also depends on if it was avoirdupois or a troy ounce. And there's 2,267 carats in a pound, And that's probably way more work than anybody ever possibly needed to determine. People just want, do I have a large, small, or medium-sized gym? How much is it worth? But this really is more realistic, I guess. So, I mean, I like it, but it's really overkill because most people don't need that. But there you go. So you've got your information if you need it, which, as I said, most people don't. But what are you going to do? And here's a listing of each gem: amber, gemstone, citrine, coral, bloodstone, and all this stuff, and they're all described. Here's jewelry. You could have amulets, anklets, bracelets, brooch, and here's their relative values. What's interesting is you can have gems in this jewelry, which should change the value, but he has no rules for that and no tables. Seems like a natural extra rule to have in there, but he did not do it. I think he really dropped the ball on that one. And then plunder, regarding treasure, plunder refers to non-magical goods the victor takes from a victim. Determine the type of plunder, then proceed to the appropriate chart and equipment. Oh my God, there's another one. Oh, chapter 9. That's what we've already been through that to determine the specific item. So you roll your percentage, and you might get common equipment, beverages, food, animals, and slave trading. Miscellaneous weapons, armor. And that was actually it for treasure. That was kind of a surprisingly small chapter, believe it or not. So now we go to chapter 15, conducting the game. The goal of this chapter is to guide and aid MAME masters in making their games an enjoyable experience. I don't think that's going to happen, not with this book. So our friendly neighborhood F.A.T.A.L writer goes on to talk about familiarity and how to be a good MAME master and be prepared and do your homework on setting up a game. And then he talks about building atmosphere for the actual game itself, the group. Choose a quiet place, garage. Some groups prefer a temperature slightly cooler than ideal, so the players are not apt to fall asleep. I don't know if I've ever heard that. That kind of makes sense. Anything suggestive of medieval times is a tremendous aid in setting the mood. Common choices of candles and incense, mead and tankards. Gaming groups display replicas of medieval weapons. You know, with F.A.T.A.L people, that's just going to end somebody going to the hospital. But what are you going to do? Again, proxemics. I don't know. The MAME master should be seated higher than the players, so when he speaks, the players literally look up to him. One method of accomplishing this is for him to sit on a stool, while the players sit on regular chairs. Screw that. Should a particular player be suspected of dishonest dice rolling? What? But the dice never lie. What? I'm getting mixed signals here. What could that mean? The type of player may be requested to sit close to the MAME master, so this may be observed and handled if necessary, according to page 671. Condiments, of course. I thought condiments were like ketchup. Gaming group, pizza, beer, soda. Most games last for several hours, and snacks. Really could have swore condiments were was ketchup and mustard. Okay. Okay, game mechanics. When dice contradict reason. Now, what? I'm just about to lose my faith in this game and everything it stands for. On occasion, the results of the dice may contradict reason. Well, they don't lie. They contradict reason, though, so I don't know. I'm kind of iffy. Let's find out what he's talking about. There's no easy answer for this dilemma, other than the fact that the main master must deliberate carefully and then kill everyone. No, maybe not. Altering the results of the dice can be a slippery slope and a bad habit to begin. That's true, because what's most important is you certainly don't fudge the dice. If they say something absolutely outlandish happens, then that's really what you need to go with, even if it makes no sense at all, because the dice never lie. So even if the main master, the MM, has a better idea and thinks, I don't think that result makes a lot of sense, but I can see where this would work, he needs to fight that instinct and really go with what the dice say, because they don't lie, and that's what F.A.T.A.L's built on. Yeah. Because the results of the dice should be accepted, taking the good with the bad. After all, if people can pick and choose whether or not to accept the results of the dice, there's no reason to roll them at all. It would be chaos. Dogs and cats living together. Mass hysteria. Dice rolling exists so events occur according to probability. Because that's what's important, is order. Absolute order and chance, of course. Order and chaos as legislated by the random dice. So that's important. When possible, and needs to remain that way. Logic must be exercised. So you should have random order when possible, except when it's not, in which case you should exercise logic whenever illogical things happen with your random order. Okay, thanks for that. We'll keep that in mind. Leadership, okay. The main master is the leader, so to speak, of the game. No. That he obviously has no concept of how role-playing games work. Especially over rules, he's the final arbiter. Okay, no, that's, No, if he makes bad decisions, group is not pleased, they're not obligated to continue. Okay. It should always be the goal to make the best decisions. Okay. Though not necessarily the most entertaining decision, but the most fair, or the decision that deviates the least from the rules. Okay, so he's saying it should be the most fair. It shouldn't be the most entertaining. It should just deviate the least from the rules. I've got to call BS on that one. Oftentimes, one player will become the leader regarding the other players. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And he touches on the follower players that listen to the other players. One duty of the MM is to attempt to referee a player's leadership behavior. He kind of gets into some interesting psychological dynamics here. A character with low charisma is unlikely to be a dominant party leader. Group dynamics differ. Try to make the game an enjoyable experience for everyone if possible, except for, the part where you're sitting around the table playing F.A.T.A.L. If you can ignore that small detail, try to accomplish the rest. Concerning players and characters, argumentative players. Players need to understand it's a game and the role. Referee, moderator. Okay, I'm not really having a whole lot of problem with most of what he says here. Speak with the players privately. Don't embarrass them. Dominating players, non-participating players. I'm down with all this. This is actually pretty common sense, which I don't know what it's doing in here. Apparently it doesn't know what book it's in, so it seems to be happy to be there. So let's see now. There's more embarrassing the players. Speak with them. Passive. Powerful characters. Many things may be done. Perhaps a pickpocket will steal their gold, or a disease will sap their superhuman strength. Well, okay, but so what is the point of them having played and achieved these things if you're going to take them away because they're too powerful? Isn't that the point of them having them? Is because they achieved them? Because they were awesome? And that's their reward? And then you take them away because, oh, you're too awesome. I don't understand that. I never have. I've seen this argument before in other games, and I guess I look at things like action heroes in movies. It's like, oh, Sylvester Stallone or Arnold Schwarzenegger they're too tough. We need to do something to make them not such badasses. Like, no, that's really not what you need to do. You can give them quirks to make them more interesting or goofy or memorable, but you don't really need to do anything to make them not hit as hard or have as many guns. That kind of defeats the point of them being badass action heroes. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm all alone with that, but I don't know. I never have understood this concept. And then you got your powerless characters. Simply undesirable. If 5 abilities together average less than 90, main master's like, get rid of this guy, start a new one. In which case, I don't know why you would have completed making the character to be... well, maybe if you didn't roll freaking random dice for everything, that wouldn't happen to begin with. If you fudged a little, which of course you're not supposed to because it somehow interferes with the plan of the god of order and chaos that runs the game or whatever. I still think characters can be played that don't have anything to do with stats, and even if it doesn't seem like it would be fun, it's possible to play characters that don't have good stats. Many players become so caught up in their numbers that they overlook the fact that it's a role-playing game. Oh my! I hate to think I'm agreeing with anything he says, but I see there's oftentimes a character that looks terrible on paper may be extraordinarily fun to play. I may need a drink after this. For example, a quote from Homer's Odyssey. Really, a quote from Homer's Odyssey. Is that really what you're... No, it reveals the prevalence of... What? Oh, this must... Okay, well, that's something from a previous section. That reveals the prevalence of violence and sexual content in much classical mythology. I sacked the city, killed the men, but as for the wives and plunder, that rich haul we dragged away from the place, we shared it round. Charming. Maps. Since fantasy adventure characters inherently adventure and explore, everybody needs to be able to communicate, agree upon symbols and standards. All maps in F.A.T.A.L, such as the pre-written adventures, will conform to the following guidelines. First, purchase some graph paper. Well, maybe I'll print some. Thank you, Codswallop. F.A.T.A.L does not use hexagonal graphing paper. Ha! The poser is only... only square graphing paper. That's right, none of that fancy hoity-toity hex paper for us. F.A.T.A.L is all about the squares. In a corner of the map, note the directions, usually indicated by an arrow and an N to represent north. Really going out on a limb on that one. The scale, 1 inch, 1 square equals 5 feet. Different scales developed depending on the need of the adventure. Yeah, I think they. Map symbols. Additional symbols may be introduced. Symbols for doors. A dot appears in the corner of the symbol. Represents the location of the hinges. Okay. That makes sense, but I'm not exactly sure. I guess, yeah, okay. I'll leave that one alone. Map symbols, sample map. Corridor that progresses east and west, 20 feet, and sample map again. Inventing adventures, and here's how he tells how to write a plot. Oh boy. Will this be good or bad? It could be awesome. Maybe not. Could be meat, could be cake. The most important part of any adventure is the plot. Perhaps the characters have been captured. Oh, I hate those. The plot of the adventure is to escape. Below is a compilation of some ideas to stimulate brainstorming. And we go back up, and the dungeon's been discovered, and the party's hired to explore it. Okay. Not breaking a whole lot of ground here. Mystery to be solved. Party member discovers something dangerous, secret, must deal with it. Army of Darkness marches on the town. Enemy has done something. Arena combat. No plot other than to stay alive. Well, I'll give him credit. These are pretty standard one-offs that would grab most players. Setting. Will it be a wilderness, dungeon, desert, hell? Well, many hours of enjoyment can be had in any. And then his organization, closure in some form. Yeah. Typically, there's a climax before the conclusion. Novelty and predictability. Gamers will lose interest if they never know what to expect. Combat and difficulty. Encounters should not occur with foes who are powerful enough that the characters do not stand a reasonable chance. However, occasionally characters should encounter forces who they cannot defeat. Okay. Which way is it? Otherwise, they may attempt to fight every creature they meet. Thinking the main master would never put them in a blatantly losing situation, which of course is not true because the main master is a dick and wants to kill you. And do various bad things to all of your orifices as many times as he possibly can to increase all of your measurements internally. The balance of difficulty is difficult and different for each group. See, he almost, you could feel him going for the encounter levels and all that stuff, but he just did not quite have the wherewithal to create his own system for that. He wanted to, though. And then you got, there's, oh god, this disposition thing. A predominantly moral group will refuse to perform an assassination for an employer who lacks credibility. Oh yeah, but of course if there's a group that has an employer that has credibility, well sure, they'll go assassinate somebody because yeah. And then you got your occupations, and then you got, oh, role-playing. What? He mentions role-playing? Come on now. Since F.A.T.A.L is a role-playing game, arguably, the purpose is to role-play a character. Water is wet. The definition, part played, when a player or MM performs the role of a character. Performs and role. We need to discuss these. We need to decide and define what the meaning of is. Different players will perform differently. Still, some act too freely often overdoing their performance. Proper performance is an ideal. It involves becoming familiar with fine details of a character. And the definition is from Webster's Third New International Dictionary, and yeah, okay, I'm really interested in that. Choleric thug may be a brawl, and so all aspects should be explored by the player. With experience, they can develop role-playing habits and preferences. And then there's magical research. And then there's main master characters that do whatever they do each time. And then you can roll that wacky 4d100 divided by 2. If you only need a little variation, 1d20 plus 90.